Thanks, Akiva. So this is a shiur in Shiur Klalli taking place on Thursday night, Lates Zion, Tammuz Toshin Ayin Beis, Lates Zion Tammuz Toshin Ayin Beis, and the shiur is in Parashas Balak, in Sefer Bamidbar, and we're referring particularly at the beginning of the class to the Pasuk, chapter 22, Kof Beis, Pasuk Hey at the moment, beginning with a Rashi on Pasuk Hey. 2:30, and just to begin, the whole of Parashas Balak is concerned with how people who didn't really have a great deal to do with the Yidden wanted to curse them. And by way of cursing the Jewish people, we mentioned something briefly in our conversation this afternoon about that there's a basic desire hidden in the makeup of the non-Jewish peoples that somehow or other they are nimshut to curse the Jewish people. They feel that Yidden are like the antithesis of their being, and therefore there's some basic necessity to rid, as it were, the world of that influence, because it's the opposite of their influence. Here we find a classic example with Balak, the beginning. It begins with Balak. Now Balak was, he was the king of Moab, but he wasn't really from Moab, he was really from Midian. Rashi tells us that he was born in Midian, and he just happened to get put on the throne in Moab at this particular moment. And the Yidden had been commanded not to interfere with Moab, because Moab were from the sons of Lot, and they'd been promised that the Yidden wouldn't interfere with them. So basically, Balak didn't really have what to be afraid of the Yidden, but he did maybe on certain bases. But again, the fact that Sichon took over certain areas of Moab, well, that made it possible for the Yidden to conquer them. That's a whole big discussion in its own right. Oh, basically, Balak didn't really have what to be frightened of the Yidden. The Yidden weren't really after him directly. And so he decided, in order to curse the Yidden, in order to bring this ridding of the whole area of the Jewish people, he decided to turn to Bilam. And Bilam also had nothing to do with the Jewish people. Bilam was from Midian also. And he had no connection, no shaykhs to the Jewish people. His whole meaning was he was a what you might call a prophetic curser. In other words, he was known to have certain gifts which bordered on prophecy. What they will have to understand, what was the type of prophecy that he had, Bilam, and it bordered on prophetic gifts, beyond the normal reason of seer powers, and so he had been experienced in cursing certain people. That was one of the things to do with Moab, that he cursed Moab, and he allowed Sichon to get in there with the whole thing. So Balak thought, oh, he's my man, as I'll bring him and he'll curse the Jewish people, and that'll put them into big trouble, and then gradually we'll be able to sort of rid the world of the other Jewish people. That was, therefore, Balak is the one that's mentioned first, and Bilam only comes into the scene a little bit later. But the great early commentators, and particularly the Balei HaKabbalah, they used to refer to this Pasha as Balak Bilam, not just Balak, but Balak Bilam, because we'll see shortly as we go along that the union of Balak and Bilam, that's the main threat. That's the Ika Koyach of the Lumazah and the Koyach HaKlippos, which faces Yidden, is the union of Balak and Bilam together. Anyway, this Balak, he gets the idea that he wants to curse the Jewish people. His man is Bilam. So it's written, Vayishlach Malachim, he sent messengers El Bilam ben Be'er, Pesoiro, to a place called Pesoir. Well, that means literally a table. Therefore, Rashi brings a whole moshel of a shulchani, like a salesman that's got a table, etc. Asher ala nahor, but that's on a river. Eretz Bnei Amoi, the land of the people of his people, land of his people. Now we need to know the land of whose people. Is that referring to the land of Balak's people or the land of Bilam's people? So basically, it turns out that it's basically the same. It's basically the same country, because Bilam is from Midian, so is Balak originally. But the question is, why do we need to mention that he sent to the land of the sons of his people, Likureloi, to call him, Leimoya, and saying to him, Hine am yotzumi Mitzrayim, a folk or people have gone out of Mitzrayim. Hine chisoer esein haaretz. They've covered the whole eye of the country. In other words, they're swarming all over the country. Hu yoshev memuli, and he's sitting opposite me, and I'm afraid of him. I'm afraid what's going to be likely to occur from all this. So therefore, I'm asking you, Ato l'cho no orali esaramazeh. Come and curse me, this people. So Rashi, take a look. Eretz Bnei Amoi. That why does it need to be mentioned that this was the country of the people of his people? So Rashi says, who was it? Shel Balak, because you could understand it in two ways. He sent to Pesoiro or Nanaha, which is the land of his people. So that could mean the land of Balak's people or the land of Bilam's people. So therefore, as Rashi says, no, it's referring particularly to the people of Balak. Mishom Hoyo, and he was from there anyway. He was from the same country as Bilam, like we're told originally in Rashi right at the beginning, that he was really from the princes of Midian. V'zeh Hoyo misnabe v'oimaloi. What's the connection between him and Bilam? How do they know one the other? Well, this Bilam, he used to make prophecies when he met up with Balak, and he used to say, Osid atol limloik, you are in the future going to be a king. And so he saw that that's certainly come true, because now he's been made a king in Moab, which is not his country, but he's been made a king over there. So he rather likes this Bilam. This Bilam is one favorite in his eye, because he's told him a prophecy which came true. So that's the reason why he would send over there to Bilam, and also why Rashi tells me that it's really the land of Balak, not the land of Bilam, because he was the one that Bilam won favor in his eyes by telling them, even though we're from the same country, but you're going to be in the future, you're going to be a king, meaning lav davki here, but in another country. Sure. So now the question occurs to ourselves, what's with this Bilam figure? What's with him? So we see that he's obviously a sought-after figure by people who are looking to do evil to other countries. Because we've already been informed by Rashi in the previous parsha that Sikhoin got into Moab and conquered quite a part of Moab with the with the curse of Bilam. And now we see that Balak has got the idea he wants to curse the Jewish people, and we see that he also personally had a prophecy from Bilam that he would be a king and so on. So this Bilam seems to be quite a cookie when it comes to cursing or looking into the future or knowing what's going on and so on and so forth. But he seems to be a pretty grimy sort of, not a very impressive sort of figure. So automatically the reader, having read this little passage here that Rashi says that he said about Balak that he would be a king, what he says seems to be pretty sure stuff. It seems to become. So therefore the mind occurs, the question occurs to the intelligent reader, what's this very unpleasant, very Tommy, Dicker Goy doing, getting these, how do you call it, prophecies from Hashem and seeming to, use the expression, hit the bullseye. So therefore Rashi says, I realize that this question is occurring to you. Rashi makes what is a very basic and important policy statement. Well, that's Rashi's derech, that often he makes important policy statements, but he makes them like, modestly inside the thread of the general purpose that he's making a la pshat in the Pesukim. And now he says, Ve'im toima, and if you will say, Mipnei ma hishro HaKadosh Baruch Hu shchinosei al goy rosha. If you might ask the basic question, why would a Kadosh Baruch Hu dwell his shchina on a goy who's not only a goy, but he's a rosha. He's obviously an evil person. So what's Kadosh Baruch Hu doing, putting his shchina in a prophetic dwelling on such a goy? Says Rashi, a very interesting reason. Kedei shelo yehei pischon per le'ochum. Ochum means the oivdei kolim or mazalas, the goyim. There should not be an excuse by the goyim, loima, that they should be able to say, and this is referring to Liosid, in the future time to come when there'll be a reckoning with the goyim on the part of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, that they shouldn't have a pischon per. A pischon per means a form of self-defense or a excuse, or whatever you like to call it, that they shouldn't, shaloyem pischon per le'ochum loima, ilu hoyu lono naviim, if we would have had prophets, chazanu lamuta, we would have gone back to be good. In other words, the problem is going to be with them. Le'osid Hashem's going to say to them, why did you go and do so much evil in the world, and you didn't keep your Sheva mitzvahs b'nei noya? The Gemara in the sector of Avodah Zarah tells us that's one of the problems the Goyim are going to have to answer. Le'osid lo, why didn't they keep at least the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei noya? What was...
Other lesson.
Why didn't they keep basically the Sheva mitzvahs? B'nei noya and so on. So they might have an excuse, how they call it, an alibi, the goyim, and they might say, well, you gave the Yidden, you gave them the Novi like Moshe Rabbeinu, and then after Moshe Rabbeinu, you gave them other Nevi'im, and they corrected and looked after the Jewish people, and they guided them. If you would have given us Nevi'im, then Chazan Lamuta, we would have gone back to good. In other words, originally we were meant to be good at the creation, we went off, and we didn't have anybody to bring us back. We didn't have any guiders. So therefore, says Rashi, Hamid lahem Nevi'im. He said, therefore, he did bring them Nevi'im. But it's very interesting that Rashi puts it in the plural. He doesn't say to us, in the Midrash, where this comes from, it's written in the singular, Hamid lahem Novi, referring to Bilam. He did give them a Novi. Over here he's written, Hamid lahem Nevi'im, that it would appear that they have other Nevi'im apart from Bilam. In other words, that after Bilam there may have been other figures that could be described as Nevi'im to the non-Jewish people. So the Eivshter did give them, he did stand them up Nevi'im, V'heim potzu geder ha'olam, and they broke away the fence of the world. In other words, they split the fence of the world. What did they do? Shebetchila hoyu gedulim ba'arayus. At the beginning, all the goyim were very guarded in immoral matters. Immoral matters means in improper unities, improper marital unities. V'zeh nosan lahem eitzer lahafkir atzmon luznus. And this gave them, and this guy, this Bilam, he gave them an eitzer, and here all of a sudden he talks in the singular Rashi. He goes back over to the singular. That's very tricky, but that would take maybe a long time to go into that, so I'm not going to go into that deal, but it's interesting. And they said, "V'zeh nosen lahem eitzer lahafkir atzmon liznus." And this one, referring to Bilam, he gave them an idea that they should make themselves hafkir, from hefker, how do you call hefker? That they should just declare themselves unownable. How do you call it? What's the word? Unownable, has no owners. To make yourself just completely open, to disown themselves to sexual immorality. Now, where did that happen? At the end of the Parsha. It's brought down that after the whole union with Bilam and with everything, then he gave the Bnei Moav, he gave them an Eitzah, that they should take all their daughters and send them over to make, how do you call it, improper sexual immorality with the Yidden. And that, unfortunately, they were successful, etc. That was the whole message at the beginning of next week's Parsha, Pinchas, that there was Zimri ben Saru, the prince of one of the tribes. He got involved with a how they call it, with a Moabite woman, and Pinchas killed both of them. Anyway, so that Eiter lahafkir atzmon, that came from Bilam. He was the one who gave the Bnei Moav, and that was written mafurish in the pasuk. L'choi otchum ha'yaseh ha'mazel bi'achris hayomim, etc. But Rashi learns that was Bilam who gave them that eight. So therefore Rashi says a very fascinating policy statement. Here you have the Goyim might have a teretz. Le'osid lovei, why weren't we the way we were? Because we didn't have a novi. Oh yes, you did. I did. I gave you a novi, and he was from your people. He was a goy, and he was a novi. But instead of doing like the Navim of the Jewish people, he ruined the world. Now, what does Rashi mean with that? He broke down the fence, because brought down, Rashi brings it much earlier in his Pirush, in Sefer Parashas. Rashi brings it that what led to the Mabul, what brought the flood in the world, was sexual promiscuity, not proper behavior in that matter. And so after the Mabul, when the Bnei Noach came out into the world, they made very strict rules about sexual promiscuity. They wouldn't allow it anymore, and they were very careful, and they never went over that, even though they were goyim and everything, but they were very careful in those matters, all up until Bilam. Or when Bilam came along, he gave him an eitzah, lahafkir etzam. The word lahafkir means to disown yourself. You have killer nothing, no laws, no rules. You're just you're a free agent in the absolute sense. So Bilam gave them that eitzah. So we see that Bilam broke down the fence that the Bnei Noach had put up. The Bnei Noach had fenced themselves around, and he broke it down. So therefore, says Rashi, you won't have any Piskum Perliosid, you guys, because I gave you a Novi, but look what he did. Instead of doing the right thing, he broke down. So the intelligent reader immediately becomes a little bit, woken up with a slight question. It's a little bit strangely unfair that time, in a way, because what are the Goyim to blame that their Novi was a Rosh? A Kodesh Baruch Hu gave him Nevuah, and he broke down the fence what they had built up. So I mean, what are they to blame? He gave them the wrong Eitzah, therefore they went the wrong way. Why should they cop out because of he was to blame? In a way, not them. But what it basically boils down to is that maybe we could say that it works both ways. That what sort of novi do you get according to how you are? In other words, what sort of a novi does Hashem give you if you're anyway looking to break down the fences of the world? So Hashem gives you such a novi. That's what you ultimately get. Well, to a certain extent, the Goyim are to blame, because the fact that they got such a novi is indicative of where they were really holding. Maybe we could suggest that. Maybe that's just a little side question, which is not the main theme of this class. But nonetheless, the intelligent reader does notice that slight deal. Now that's written in the Medrash Rabbah in two places. It's also brought down the Medrash Tanchuma, and they all say basically the same thing, that this was the answer to any like excuse or alibi that the Goyim might have. This is the answer, that Hashem did give them a Novi, and he broke down and over there the Medrash goes into detail. It says the Nevi'im of the Yidden make the world a better place. They keep warning the Yidden against doing. They keep saying this. They're Rachmanim, and they're merciful people. And the Bilam was not like that. He was a cruel person. He was a person. He didn't give answers to how to be better. He only gave answers how to break down the world. So we see then that there's building up a picture that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Goyim a Novi in order to break down anything they may have to say at a later point. And this Novi, he broke down and he ruined the creation, and he did, as it were, the exact opposite of what we would expect a Novi to do. Now, how do we expect what a Novi is supposed to do? Because we're used to the Jewish Nevi'im. We're used to the Nevi'im that we know about. We know, for example, the forefathers. Rashi mentions that one of the things about Bilam was he went against the forefathers. According to the Gemara, they were Nevi'im. And our forefathers were people that set up the whole holiness and wondrous discipline of the Jewish people. And then we see wherever we've had Nevi'im up to Moshe Rabbeinu, but there have been a few of them, there have also been people who try to bring back the world and make the world a better place, and to teach it and to instruct it how to follow the rules of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And here we have a Novi that he obviously had powers, but he used those powers to go in exactly the opposite direction. So Rashi said that you obviously are concerned. How would Hashem do that? How could Hashem give his Shekhinah and dwell his Shekhinah on such an unworthy person? So says Rashi, the main thing is not so much because of him. The main thing was to answer this whole, and to a certain extent to slide out the mat from under the feet of the Goyim Liyasidlo. However, on the sideline, we pick up a picture of Bilam as being the opposite of all that fair expectation of a prophetic figure would be. And instead of building fences to protect society, he blew the fence, which the whole of the Goyish society had seen to be necessary after the Mabul. So he's a pretty destructive person, even from their point of view, let alone what he was trying to do to the Yid. So that's a very important policy statement on the part of Rashi. He's let us know. So that leads us to the question, what's this whole union of the fact that Bilam was a Novi? Now, what do we mean by saying that he was a Novi? I mean, the Rambam writes at great length in Hilchos Nevuah, in the first Sefer, Hilchos Yeseda HaTorah. There's a whole couple of chapters from the Rambam about Nevuah, and the Rambam says Novi has to be a holy person. He has to be, one of the leading people in the whole creation, that he's ridded himself of the whole Yetzer Hara. He has no leanings toward any taivas or any evil, or he's only just a man of absolute union with Hashem. And so many are the details that surround that whole union. He's got to be a chochom, he's got to be a gibur, he's got to be a outstanding person of absolute separation from the temptations of this world and the drawings of this world. So the question immediately becomes deeper in our minds. What's this Indian that Bilam, such an unpleasant figure, and such a Tommy figure as we see later on, Every time Hashem tells him not to go, and he finds a way to go. And why does he find a way to go? Because he's hoping that even though Hashem said, don't curse these people, maybe I'll be able to persuade Hashem, yes, to curse them. And I mean, we see this as a really, sinister, unpleasant type that's looking to do massively evil things. So I asked myself the question, what's the sin that he was a Novi? How can that really be? How can that really be pictured? So, what I want to do now is, for the rest of the class, I just want to try and describe a few pictures of different ways of viewing this, and see if we can't somehow or another reach a final picture. What was with this Purim card? So, I think what we'll do, we'll start off with the highest picture, and then we'll sort of we'll go down by gradation and see what we could possibly come to. And I saw in a passage in one of the works from the Rebbe that Tzemach Tzedek, that the Rebbe that Tzemach Tzedek says that Moshe Rabbeinu, he was the highest Novi, and it's written, "V'loi kom oid Novi k'Moshe b'Yisrael." Oid Novi k'Moshe, right at the end of the Chumash, the last pasuk in the Chumash, Asher Yodoi Hashem ponim el ponim v'chule. There's never stood up another person, another Novi like Moshe b'Yisrael. So there's a very amazing Sifri, and then it's also brought in the Medrash Rabbah. I looked up and I found that's usually quoted from the Sifri, but it's not only in the Sifri, it's also in the Medrash Rabbah, a very amazing thing. And the Medrash says that by Yidden there was never a Moshe like a Novi like Moshe Rabbeinu, but by the Goyim there was, and he was called Bilam. That's an absolutely amazing statement. But that's what the Medrash says. Just be patient with a minute, I'll try and find it here. It's not in this week's Pasha, it's in Pasha Nosei. Oh. Here we are. So the Medrash says like this: V'loi kom novi oid b'Yisrael k'Moshe. There's never been another prophet by the Yidden like Moshe. B'Yisrael loi kom, says the Medrash. By the Yidden he's never got up. There's never been anybody like Moshe. Avul bumas ha'olam kom. Now it's interesting in the Sifri, which is a Medrash of our sages on Bamidbar and Dvarim. It's written Bavlium. It's written in the Babylonians, meaning like the certain part of the Goyim. Over here it just says almost Elam Baklal. Generally speaking, by the Goyim, that there is a person who is like Moshe Rabbeinu by the Goyim. Kedei shelo yehei pischem per le'umas Elam. Exactly like Rashi said, but in a slightly different context. In order that the Goyim shouldn't have any tiny lovei, ela hefresh bein nevuah shel Moshe lenevuah shel Bilam. There's a big difference between the nevuah of Moshe compared to the nevuah of Bilam. Shalish midas hoya biyad Moshe, mashaloi hoya biyad Bilam. There were three, as it were, characteristics by Moshe that they weren't there by Bilam. Moshe hoya medaber imoy oimed. Moshe spoke with Hashem only when he remained standing. He didn't have to fall. Shenema ta'apo amoid imodi ve'adaber elecha. Ve'im Bilam lo hoya medaber ela noifel. It's written later on, noifel v'gilu inam, that Bilam had to fall down on his face. Rashi said because he was an oral, didn't have mirror, therefore he had to cover himself, he had to fall on his face. because otherwise it would have been improper for Hashem to speak with him. So Hashem used to speak to him when he was laying on the ground on his face. That is not the Medrash. Moshe Yemandavim Peh al Peh. Moshe used to speak with the Eibishter mouth to mouth. But Bilam, it was only Shoimeya Imrei El. He used to hear the words of Hashem. That he never spoke to him Peh al Peh. And that goes on to draw all sorts of other different differences between the Nevuah of Moshe and the Nevuah of Bilam. And then it even says towards the end that maybe there was something what appear at first glance to be miles in Bilam, that Bilam knew who was talking with him, but Moshe Rabbeinu didn't always know who was talking with him. Very strange statement. Bilam always knew when Hashem was going to talk with him. Moshe could never know when Hashem was going to talk with him. And then it finishes with a mashal, so does the Sifri. And I said, how come Bilam had this amazing knowledge? So the mashal to a kitchen worker or a kitchen manager of the king. And so he knows what the king buys for his pantry, and he knows how much it costs the king, because he has to order to pay the bills and so. But so he's only the how they call it, the kitchen man. He's no more than that. But since he's in charge of the kitchen, then he knows certain things that go on. So that's like Bilam. But Moshe, he's like a close member of the court of there. He doesn't do with this. Therefore, he doesn't necessarily know all the details. As it's brought down in the Medrash, certain people say that that's all milas. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know who was talking with him. The Pirush, that Hashem is so beyond and so transcendent that Moshe always knew that he could never really grasp Hashem, even though he knew Hashem was talking with him, and therefore he didn't know. Bilam got from such a level, that he knew what level it was. That's one way of answering it. Another way of answering other things that are written here is that Moshe Rabbeinu never knew when Hashem was going to talk with him, because, like Rashi said in Pasha B'Haloishcho, that Moshe could, any second Hashem was likely to appear to Moshe and speak with him. And therefore Moshe was always, on call. Any moment Hashem was going to talk with him maybe, and therefore he didn't know when that was going to be, and therefore he was always on call. He was always ready. Mashiach Rashi says later, it was Davki at night time that he spoke with Bilam. Davki in the night, and it's like a hidden way, and not openly and not intimately, but he would speak with Moshe Rabbeinu even by day. So therefore, the great Meforshim point out that what appeared to be advantages for Bilam on his score really are not. They're really advantages for Moshe Rabbeinu. Oh, but we see that this Bilam guy, he's compared like Kom Novi, B'Yisrael. Kamoshe, B'Yisrael, almost say to him,